following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbb-radio.com.
Welcome back to the Next of Kin podcast. I'm your host, Rich, joined by my son, Christian.
How we doing?
I'm cold.
Yeah, it's freezing.
And sore.
That's your own fault. The second
Well,
one.
I started working out again, and my trainer, Mr. Salambini, down at Village Fitness. Go to Village Fitness, good place to go. But I'm feeling it today. So, happy Halloween. You got your costume ready yet?
We're like 2 weeks away.
Yeah, we got to get your costume.
Really, I don't care.
What are you wearing? Just as a soccer player again?
What? I don't think I ever did that.
That was mainly your brother.
I think Zach did that 8 times.
Yeah, I think he was just lazy after that. So, all right. Well, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Here we are at Emerge, and we're going to be. Originally, we were going to do a Marvel update episode.
Well, don't say originally. Like we had this big plan.
Well,
we just said like 3 hours ago. Like let's talk about Marvel.
Well, I tried to make it sound like we're
and then we looked at the
professional,
Marvel about a minute before the podcast started. And we're like, this is kind of too much to talk about.
It's too much to talk about, especially because we felt there was other things that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Because last week you had the wrap up of Power, Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
Rings of Power wrapped up. She-Hulk wrapped up, although I don't think we're even talking about that too much.
We kind of have to.
Andor.
You're right. We add that to the list. Actually.
Andor, and then we had a couple things.
A couple other smaller things.
She-Hulk
will be small too.
Because then again, next week you got Game of Thrones,
the finale,
for season 1.
So next week will probably be. I'll do a quick. I'll tell you what, we can do a little bit because so we're not too far out of the loop by the time we eventually talk about it.
Right.
But okay, so Marvel, this is MCU. A lot of news in the last 2 weeks. Obviously, I think that kind of all started with Deadpool announcing Wolverine, which I think is very separate from a lot of the rest of the news. But more importantly, I think a lot of the behind the scenes news is even more important, which is kind of big delays to some of the films in the MCU. Right. Kind of all as a result, seemingly to Blade. Because and I guess Blade, we can talk about Blade real quick. What's it called? So Mahershala Ali, 2-time Oscar winner, the guy who brought out 4 years ago at this point, 3 years ago, and said he's gonna play Blade, and I think one of the points here is MCU fans don't want you to announce a character 5 years ago and then wait 5 years to then see that character. You know what I mean? That's too much.
Yeah.
And not to mention,
Indiana Jones 5.
He's
I feel
not to
been
mention
hearing
you
about
have
it
this
for 10 years.
really elite caliber actor, and then basically, from the talk of it is that he finally got saw the script and what the director's ideas were and what the ideas of that director was to fit the script, and he hated them. And he thought they were that there wasn't really, and apparently there's some talk that he's still pretty upset about it, the actor. So. There's this talk of okay, we're gonna push it back. Kevin Feige will actually give it the attention it needs because that's been the talk. Is that Kevin Feige, who usually used to, not that every MCU film that he was on before Phase 4 was perfect or whatever,
right?
But there's talk that he used to have way more of a hand in everything, and now with all the shows and all the movies that are out, just the sheer amount of content, he's less involved.
Okay,
I think this shift is more to. First off, I would say it's very interesting that people were happy to hear delays.
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
We're getting into something we said we weren't going to do. So,
I just wanted to do a very quick
Let's
overview.
do this real quick. I don't want to go through all of it, though, because we're not going to get into any of the other
Blade,
things.
Because that's the original.
So focus on that. Don't go off in the weeds.
So Blade's
on this.
Entirely it's been.
Did they lose the director or no?
Director for Blade.
The director's gone.
So Giacchino also said he wasn't available for Blade as well.
Who?
Giacchino, who did Werewolf by Night.
Okay.
And that was the big kind of what people were not hoping for, but that was the thought that maybe Giacchino would step in and do that.
Well,
but I think what I think they're
composer.
doing now is they're not just, which I think it's better instead of just plugging in Giacchino to make this production keep going and no, restart. Start over. Give this actor, who's like one of the more talented actors you've recruited, the time it deserves, and actually don't view any of your characters like less important than the others. Like every character deserves like the same amount of like care taken to them. Like, so especially like when you have like Mahershala Ali playing like Blade.
Well, you're lucky to
the
get
original Blade was the original like popular Marvel film. Like in 1998, like it's the original like most popular
and the Daredevil movie.
Not the Daredevil movie. Like it predates Spider-Man, it predates X-Men. Like this, there's kind of a legacy to uphold in some sense, and you've got a really good actor to like uphold that legacy. So do the film justice.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that more next week.
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about. Acting.
There's so much going on with
casting
Marvel.
news.
Yeah, there's way too
delays
much stuff,
of films.
You know,
the changing of shows to special presentations, and also like the changing of shows to movies, because it does seem like that the 6-episode arc type of show that seems to be on the out, or at least like. In at least everything that is released on Disney Plus seems to be moving towards, like, I assume like something like Loki, which actually I think worked kind of.
I think
in a
certain shows
arc.
I think certain shows are going to stay as the 6-episode.
But I think
thing.
you're going to actually start seeing shows that are actually like, instead of being like instead of taking a character and kind of like fitting them crudely into the 6-episode arc, you actually just take the character, and then if they are best suited for a special presentation, then you do that.
Right,
or if they're best suited for, or
that's
like Daredevil, he'll get a full show.
We'll bring it up next week.
Either way, yeah.
Because we know there's a bunch of stuff coming up, and we know Marvel's.
We are aware. We'll just do it next week, though.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to. I think what they're doing is to wrap it up is that they're sitting down and saying we got to slow down. We're not. Our quality's not what it was consistently, and so before we kind of like start bleeding viewers and the negativity starts to ramp up, what can we do to
not
fix
to mention,
this?
look at all the
and some things, and some actors might say, I don't want to do a movie.
Yeah.
I want to stay with. So like if Huddleston says no, I like the 6-episode.
Also, think
thing,
about the
then,
sheer amount of positivity that like Werewolf by Night got just for being different. And actually, for like taking your time with it, it would have seemed like. Or
I just hope that they're like, well, that's going to work for everything now. No, we're going to squeeze everything into an hour again.
For instance, like there's like we've heard of like in the future. Like remember there was like
it's tough to introduce a character
no, but I'm saying,
in
remember there was
an
like
hour
on a Koye
in 90
show?
minutes.
But I think, but honestly, I think like some of the characters that were introduced, like the 3 main characters, Man-Thing, Jack, and Elsa, in that. Like are some of the 3 better characters, and I think are kind of like handled better than some of the even characters in the 6-episode shows.
I just don't want them to introduce like some character and like we're gonna do it in 90 minutes because now we're back to crappy television.
For instance, like
and there won't be any
talk of stuff like a Koye show though. That doesn't need 6 episodes.
Let's get out of this.
90 minutes.
We're in the weeds. Where I'm looking for my golf ball in the weeds. Let's move. All right, so really, let's get into next week. We'll definitely get into some fights about that.
All right, we'll move to She-Hulk.
Do we have to?
We have to talk about.
Do I? I do. I'm kind of disappointed.
We're just going to talk about.
I want to say. Let me start with this because I think, in general, I don't complain.
No, not really.
I'm pretty like, they did a nice job. I'm like, I'm Ted Lasso.
Annoy me,
I'm Ted Lasso. Like, you're trying.
And I'm not like that at all.
You're doing a great job. And I'm kind of like, I really want to go and punch somebody in the face at She-Hulk, like Productions.
I know there are some people that really like the weirdness of it.
Some people really liked it.
I'm sure for some people that you really, but it's not good. Like,
so,
unfortunately.
If you haven't watched She-Hulk, I still think you should watch it because I think there's some cool things that are done. I think Daredevil kind of saved it. I think some of the Wong stuff was fun. I don't dislike the actress. I think the character's fine. I like the supporting cast a lot.
Yeah,
her two friends are awesome. I really like those characters. They are great TV show characters. Abomination was a lot of fun. So on
just
all
bewildering storytelling decisions, basically.
So in the last episode, and we're just going to focus on the last episode because we've already covered the rest of it.
Yeah, we've talked about it enough.
Like they're building up to the typical Marvel thing. And then they say, oh, God, we're doing the typical Marvel thing. Because then in 10 seconds, every character all shows up at the exact same time.
Abomination.
Yeah. Everybody shows up, and all of a sudden it's like, it's like Endgame, where everybody shows up at the exact same time. And then she says, I don't like this. And she goes on this thing, and she goes to Marvel headquarters, and she meets
she
a
breaks,
robot.
She breaks out of her own show. She
Yeah.
breaks, because again, the character is never like breaking the fourth wall.
Right.
So like this was their like way of like building that in to like the story.
And that's fine, but here's where it went so far off, because we obviously, if anybody's watching the show knows
also
they're
the
breaking
CGI
the fourth
got
wall.
better once you
The
went to
CGI
Marvel
for some
Studios,
reason
too,
got really
which
good
it's
for
not
about
good when you're
and not
CGI,
even
like,
consistently. It got good for about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it was almost like a tongue-in-cheek, yeah, here, we can do it if we want to. But then she goes to Marvel, and she goes into, like, a room where the writers are there, and there's, like, 35 people there. Yeah. And it made me mad because it's like, someone thought it'd be fun. Like, let's bring everybody gets to play themselves. Yeah. And the guy who brings us the coffee and the janitor's there. Like, the entire staff of the show is in the writer's room, and they're like, and there's nothing wrong with that bit.
It's kind
there's
of
nothing
weird.
wrong with that bit, but that bit went on forever.
Yeah, it took like in the scene when
it was
she was
longer than a terrible Saturday Night Live
when she was
skit.
in the room with
the robot,
Kevin, the robot, which I thought was at least vaguely funny that they named it Kevin. Like, it's kind of funny.
Well, Kevin. But here's the funny thing about that: if you had your
but they joked about their tropes.
Here's the funny thing though: if you had your closed captioning on, whenever they referred to Kevin, even before he showed up as a robot, it was showing up as the robot. Yeah. So like whoever was in charge of the closed captioning, if it was on, like it was like, well, I already knew, like, and the way they were referring to it, like, well, no one sees Kevin, and I knew just because it wasn't well written.
Also, like,
it wasn't well written enough.
It's not what Kevin Feige is like. Like, it's not what Kevin Feige is like as a person. If you've ever like listened to the dude do an interview, like,
so.
But either way, I hated like
it was too meta
much for me. Like, I don't like when stuff goes that far meta. Like, and I only like fourth wall break when it's making fun. That's the only time I like. I only like fourth wall break in a Deadpool capacity. Right. That's just me. But like this idea that because again the thing was like they made fun of like the finals of like a lot of these Disney.
Yes.
That was like, which I'm like, okay,
which was fine.
Which I'm like, okay, great.
But Deadpool does it with one-liner. Deadpool does it with a one-liner.
Yes, exactly.
It's not a 10-minute sequence in the movie.
Yeah,
he makes a reference.
And do
like,
a lawyer
remember, he
case,
says, "We're going to take you to see Professor X," and he's like, "Which one?" And then he says the two actors' names. That's a joke. It's a bit, but it doesn't go on for 15 minutes.
It just felt like it was incredibly like that they didn't. It would have been fine, like if this year, if the MCU had kept its reputation of just like being a bit formulaic, because that would kind of like used to be the biggest like thing that MCU had going against it. There's always been people that like aggressively didn't like the MCU, but I would say like that the overall attitude towards it has soured as of late. So like a lot of these jokes don't land when like the overall feeling that people have had when they've watched the last 4 or 5 Marvel properties has been one of underwhelmment. Not to mention they made jokes about like the visual effects team,
right,
and like how stretched thin they are, which is like that's not something you're actually joking about, because that's like guys that are actually underpaid that you've actually been having working over the top hours for months on months on end. That's not actually funny. It's like that's something you actually should be fixing. Right. So it's like you didn't think that we would figure that out, and then like so that joke doesn't work.
Let me focus on a couple things that.
And then also, are you going to fix the issues then in the future that is wrong with your finales?
So when they
characters?
wrapped up that bit. And then all of a sudden we were outside and it was over and the show kind of ended. Yeah. And it was like, oh, okay.
So how is this show going to make fun of writing? You know what I mean? Like, how is this show going to make fun of anything else?
So then there was almost no climax. So they went from like having the overtop typical climax to essentially no climax. Yes. And she never really. And then all of a sudden we had like the family picnic, and we had a couple. Hulk shows up, bad CGI in the back, and it was just kind of like. Yeah. And the only thing is like sometimes the added they didn't do the added scene. They did do an added scene, but they did a scene where it was like. Instead of an added scene, they just kind of did like it reminded me of like a party at the end of like Fast and Furious.
Yes, exactly.
Like, it was exactly what it felt like. Everybody's here and we're all about family and here's Daredevil again. Shit, yeah. And that I just wish there had been a little bit more
crazy
there.
How good Daredevil is, because anytime he's on screen, you're like, yeah,
everybody's like
talking.
He's yay! I know him.
He's talking.
I see you. It's like the the bit like
I don't know, man.
Daredevil. And actually, in many ways, I think he saved the last 2 episodes just by having an appearance. All right, so 2 things that I did kind of like. that I will say, I'm going to give him a little bit of credit for two things in the episode that were fine. I thought the beginning of the show, of the episode, where they did the throwback to the Incredible Hulk TV series style opening.
That was fine.
That was really well done.
Although
for a guy,
it's dumb that you created a sequence in your show that looks better than your actual main character looks.
It was funny,
the actual practical
like the
Hulk
jacked
person looked
the
way
practical,
better than she looked
like
the entire
a
show.
lot of. There was a couple memes about that, and but I love, again, as a guy who grew up watching that Incredible Hulk TV show, and it was like appointment TV for me in 7th grade or whatever, whenever it was on. I loved the throwback and acknowledging their heritage with that. I thought that was fine. The angry She-Hulk or whatever it was, and then I did like the sequence in the barn or whatever it was when all the guys were there, and the one character that we really like, I can't think of the character's name, the male lawyer that we like.
Yeah, that guy.
That guy who's incredible in that part.
He's funny.
He
hit the guy, the really awkward other lawyer guy who was in that scene, and her assistant are both really good. Those are both really good characters for a lawyer show.
Even the creepy guy that's like Intellijo, even Intellijo, which turns out that's just a
I
terrible.
just wish they leaned into the lawyer vibe way more. Just have more courtroom scenes. Remember the Daredevil courtroom scene with her?
That was really
way
good.
Better. Do more of that. Why couldn't?
And that was a well-written scene.
That's
so,
the thing,
but I did like that scene.
And I knew when they made this a 20-minute, a 22-minute, a week thing, or whatever the hell this is, or 25-week thing, that they weren't gonna, I knew they weren't gonna be able to commit to that concept.
Well,
so every episode we have to deal with these 20 minutes of half MCU, fake lawyer show.
But here's the funny thing: a fake lawyer show. Fake lawyer shows aren't sitcoms. Fake lawyer shows are 50 are an hour.
Yeah, and I'm glad it had that.
So if they kind of, was it a sitcom or was it a lawyer show? Lawyer shows are our shows. Sitcoms are 25 minutes.
They wanted a sitcom lawyer show.
So they did a sitcom lawyer show, which isn't really a thing. So they created a genre, but they made fun of genre, whatever. Yeah. But I did like the scene when the guy was into the barn and all the other guys, all the man guys were there, and they were all and they were making all the jokes. They'd already done those jokes early in the season, but I still did like that. I did like that scene an awful lot.
My other thing is
and the buildup of was Abomination really he betrayed her, and it really he was just making money.
He was just making fun of incels.
And then he was actually
they were basically making fun of a lot of people in the community who, because were the really far anti-women people who were and a lot of, they're making fun of that. A lot of the people that aren't in charge of those people are just literally milking them for money. That's what they are.
Right.
A guy he was basically doing a Jordan Peterson essentially. I don't know if you know who that is, but
sure.
But he was basically doing that, and he's I just do this for speaking money,
right.
Okay.
It's not great, but they already renewed it for season 2, so that will be a show. That won't be a movie.
Didn't.
It did.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they said that it's in development.
They're lying.
Okay.
You're never gonna. I will tell you right now, you won't see that. See She-Hulk 2? No, you won't see.
Why are you mad at that napkin?
I don't know.
Stop it.
There's almost no way.
Okay.
It didn't even make it. It wasn't in the top 10 ratings. The Nielsen. It wasn't a Nielsen. Is that what it's called? The
Nielsen,
weird top 10 for TV ratings. It fell out. Even Miss Marvel didn't fall out. But I will say for Marvel,
we will see She-Hulk again.
This is back-to-back bad rating in terms of who's watching them shows.
And I don't want to get into that again because we have too much else to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
either way,
we will see She-Hulk again. I don't know in what capacity, but we will see She-Hulk again.
Well, they're definitely doing a World War Hulk thing.
So she'll be in that.
It's certainly going to be part of the next phase or something at some point.
All right. And again, now that they're reworking everything, we don't.
Now that they've introduced the
let's
Thor's kid, not Thor's kid, the Hulk's kid.
Yeah, Hulk Jr. All right, so moving on. All right, so also, want to just knock out Prey real quick? Because everybody,
we can do Prey.
Let's do Prey real quick. So
Prey came out in
I got
August,
home.
right?
It came out a while back, and we kept talking about doing it. And then we were away, actually, I think, when it came out. So when by the time,
we heard great things about it.
You had heard great things about it, and I was kind of indifferent to it. And then I don't know why, but during the week, I think I just said, well, let's watch something. And we were.
It was kind of short.
We were kind of flipping around on the different on all the social all the streaming services that we have, and we couldn't really. Originally, we were going to watch Transformers 3. That was our original plan, but then we settled on because I didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah,
it was $4, and I'm not paying $4 for that shit. I
I
watched commercials.
Hey, Transformers 3 is awful,
and it had commercials.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
I was like, I'm not watching it with commercials. Yeah. Screw that. I mean, what am I, TBS?
All right, to Prey.
So then, let's watch Prey. So obviously, Prey is supposed to be in the Predator universe.
Yeah.
And it didn't take place as far back as we thought in human history as we thought.
No, I thought it was going to be a little bit further. It's just like in the 1700s.
It's 17 like
15 or something.
It's before the Revolutionary War, so like 1715.
Pre-America.
And I have to say, I was super, super impressed with it.
I liked this a lot, yeah.
They were Cherokee?
I don't know what the...
I'm pretty sure they were
Cherokee.
Cherokee.
They were Cherokee, if I remember correctly. But either way, like, I think that was...
So I was
beyond
wondering...
even the Predator stuff, I think they did a really good job
Let's
with
talk
the
about
Native
just...
American
Because obviously the Predator
culture.
stuff is cool. We'll get to the Predator stuff in a second. What I liked was that... what I thought was really cool is that they had this concept. What?
They really took their time.
They really took their time establishing it, and it worked.
Their culture
the likability of this Cherokee culture, specifically this young lady who does not want to accept her typical role within her culture and wants to be a hunter.
Yeah.
And, her brother's the hunter, and there's other guys that are kind
of
like...
badass,
He is a badass.
That dude is some of the best fight scenes I've seen. Like
he's really good. And he was a strong character, and they had a nice story arc even for him. And then there's other guys
really technical things in this movie as
well,
like, in terms of visual effects.
But what I liked from a storytelling standpoint is it starts off, and we only hear her talking... in Cherokee, and I apologize if I got I'm 99% sure it was Cherokee.
I think you're right, but either way, they're a Native American.
But Native American tribe, and they're using the Native American language, which I think is awesome because, again, like, let's be honest. Like,
and I think I mentioned this, they would go back and forth between both the native language and the English, and they would just whenever they felt like it, though. Whenever they felt it was a better for the scene.
Right, like when she talked to the dog, which was the greatest dog in film history.
That dog's great.
I love that dog.
Also,
we were very nervous about.
It's a great film technique to just have the dog be a character.
I love the
you're just
fact
scared the entire
we
time.
We didn't care that all the European guys got slaughtered, and we're like, good.
I want to talk.
But if you touch the dog,
I want to talk with the European guys.
If you touch, we'll get to the European guys. If you touch the dog, I'm coming through my screen.
I'm gonna, murder you all.
I love that we fit right in. Like, don't you touch the dog?
Yeah.
Run, dog, run.
And I love, and I think the Predators. But I love that.
Well, back to the way they did the language.
Yeah.
The way they did the language was they made it feel like, just from storytelling standpoint, that they all spoke Cherokee, but for the audience's perspective. They did it in English, otherwise they would have had subtitles the entire movie. And I think they knew that wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. But what's really cool when we get to the French part is that they were French.
Yeah.
So that we didn't hear them speak English. They weren't the typical English settlers.
We didn't have subtitles or anything.
And then we had no, they never subtitled them. And then just the one guy that was like working with them spoke Cherokee. Yeah. He says, I speak many languages, and let me communicate with you. So he was like their translator. Yeah. And it was cool the way they did it because it really still represented and respected the Native American culture in my mind. And I'm not Native American.
I even love some of the Native, like that there was like that they.
It was really cool how they did it.
Herbs and stuff, or like the different things that Native Americans would just know their environment, and they would know what certain plants would do certain things. So, like for instance, like I love that like the one trick they found was that there was a plant or like a herb, whatever you want to call it, that like literally that would lower their body temperature. So the Predator's like vision thing, like the iconic. Like vision of the Predator couldn't see, like basically would make her invisible. Right. Like when he was,
which was their version of his invisibility cloak.
But it's also cool that she was like, and they did a really good job of her. Like, she wasn't overpowered at all. Like she gets thrown around a lot. And
everybody gets their asses thrown around a lot. Yeah. Like nobody,
except for the one Native American guy until he fights the Predator at the end.
What we decided in the film, and it's not like
brother.
We also decided the way we watched the movie that not only was she trying to find her place in society, we feel that the Predator that got dropped off, this was like his solo.
Yeah, because the ship leaves him.
They leave him there, so this is almost like his initiation into society.
Not to mention he's
just like she was supposed to be. So it's almost like both these characters, the Predator and the girl, as well as the brother, are all going through their.
Not to mention he matches
becoming a member of the tribe, so to speak.
Not to the Predator is like matching the technical proficiency of whichever opponent he would fight.
Yeah,
he was fighting everything.
Use a blaster.
It was like first he fights a wolf, and also I would say like we get a lot of like scenes with like animals and like the CG animals.
CG
that
animals
look
are really good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Like pretty solid like effects for that.
Yep.
And like we haven't fight like a bear. We haven't fight like a wolf.
The fight with the bear was really good.
And he doesn't use weapons during those fights though, because it's like, oh no, it's like I'm matching you. It's almost like his rite of passage. Like he has to go and like beat a bunch of the predators or the strongest things on this
He has
planet.
to work his way up and beat all the strongest things on the planet, and then he's allowed to evolve.
Because again, she's trying to go on in her culture. It's like a hunt, like a ritualistic hunt where she hunts a predator.
And so is he.
And
so is the predator.
And then he's doing like his own culture's version of it. So they mirror each other.
And here's the funny thing: we don't know. We're saying he, but we don't know the race of the predator.
We don't know what
the predator could have been a woman
too. That predator
like,
design was so good.
Very
different.
very
scary with like the skull mask.
And they don't do a lot of CGI with the predator.
They do
There's a lot of practical
stuff. They keep him camoed a lot. Which is good, but they do a lot of really cool things with like
the bleeding,
the blood. Like there was one scene where there was literally just like where you can see all the crevices and all the details on its face because he's just soaked with the blood of the bear that he's holding above its head.
Yeah,
and then you can just see like it basically start to form the body with the liquid.
Right.
And it's like, oh my god.
Well, that one scene where she's watching the bear fight the predator, and that bear was really well done.
Yes,
and the bear
that was the best.
The
animal.
bear kind of kicks the ass.
The wolf was real too. The wolf was I think a trained wolf, and that scene where they had it back and forth with the predator. And also, the predator gets messed up by the animals a bit too.
Well, I think that's again part of the ritual for the predator, that it can't just go in and be overpowered. Because then if it's reliance on technology and it's not a hunter, they're allowed to use the equipment based on the level of the prey that they're fighting. And that's what I thought was pretty cool. The way I thought that was very cool from a story development standpoint. They spent a lot of time. And I will say that this is not something that every Predator movie or Alien movie ever did. Mm-hmm. They really kind of tried to put a really cool backstory into all the characters, including the Predator.
Yeah.
And really, I don't know. I thought, and it wasn't overly long.
I thought her tribe's culture was very well fleshed out. I thought that it respectfully used the kind of like the knowledge of her as a Native American to beat her being a Native and the knowledge that she had and her experiences from being Native, from hunting, and her watching her environment and using it allow her to beat the predator, which I think is, and it's not like she fights him hand-to-hand combat and beats him. The other guy tries that and he's obviously the best human in the movie, and he still gets his ass handed to him.
But he does pretty damn good.
But he does pretty damn good though still. But you learn through
he cuts his arm off.
Exactly. You learn through that guy that you're not gonna beat him in a fight. So you gotta be smart. And she traps him. She uses her own tech against him. She uses the herb to lower her body temp.
Which was always one of those things in the first movie and it was funny because
back to the real quick, back to the French people, the Europeans. I loved that because one thing,
they were jerks, they really portrayed it as accurately,
totally accurately. Remember this live history of almost of when people were colonizing and when you're going to these new lands and getting. So these maybe less developed by your perspective, peoples like Native Americans and stuff.
Savages is the term
they're savages.
We have to give them Jesus
in Christianity and and there was some
after
level
we enslaved them and
where
give them
those
the
were the
pox.
first people. Those were the first people. Those were fur. I think those were fur traders or fur hunters. They were trappers. That's what they were.
Yeah,
and they were more savage than the natives. They were savages.
There's a great scene that really sets it up.
And I think that was the truth.
She comes out
just because they were white and just because they were European doesn't mean that these people were somehow they were significantly less.
They were terrible people.
No, not even that. Just in terms of look at the culture and the way that the camp of the natives was. There was certainly much more order and much more you know what I mean?
Ritualistic.
Sense, and you know more about what's going on, around you, you know what I mean?
What I liked,
there was more community and culture.
The one scene that was really cool, the way they were doing it, and I love the way they did it. And it's not an original scene because it's a little bit Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
Is she comes out of the woods and she sees the buffalo, and there's 20 buffalo, and they're all dead, and they're not. They were just skinned. Mm-hmm. And in first you think, oh, the predator did this, but no. If you know a little bit about the fur traders just basically came in and they didn't care about the buffalo meat. They don't understand, and that's the thing. Like, well, yeah, the Indians hunted too. Well, that's not why they hunted. They hunted as part of their society to survive. Where these hunters,
I didn't think about that. Yeah, like
these guys are just coming in
the
because
they
want to sell they want to sell
there.
buffalo fur, and they just leave the meat there to rot, which is bad for their for everything.
Like a Native American would never do. Yet the Native American would, from their perspective, is somehow a savage. Like when
and I thought that, and it wasn't like
when they're the far more respectful, more human people
and
there.
it wasn't the beat you over the head with the message thing.
No, yeah, exactly.
Look how bad the colonists are. Like they never used that. They just kind of portrayed it relatively accurately but there just happened to be a predator floating around. Yeah. And then obviously, it's kind of great when he goes in there and he just kind of slaughters them. And then he's using their own tech again, like that level of tech
really
against
good effect them, is one like there's a couple instances where she gets caught and she's being chased by the predator, but the predator will not kill her if she can't defend herself, essentially. So there's some level of honor where because again he's basically going one-on-one against these different groups and these different opponents.
Right.
And part of his honor is he has to they have to fight. He's not just gonna have her be trapped in a trap and
he's not gonna kill her in a cage.
Yeah. And the other thing that was very, very cool was him matching when he would upgrade. For obviously from the animal to the natives, he upgraded to Native American style weaponry. So he had these metal bolts that he was basically shooting with his own bow type thing that he had created. Or
he was able to use his own bow version.
So he
even when he went from
and
wolf
even
to bear, he went and had the Wolverine-like type claws. He was able to have claws.
And then he moved from Native American tech to the European gun tech, he moved up yet again, and he was.
And what a great scene!
You see, because eventually you see they bring back the 3-dot red sight that is iconic when he uses them against the.
He's
the
able
European
to have a targeting
guys.
thing, and he's able to have a targeting thing, and I do like when he did, and I think really to the ending was to get to the ending was, and not even the setup for sequel or anything like that, but just the concept of they make it look like that they're coming back now, and we don't know why they're coming back to look for the dude. The Predators are an interesting race. They've kind of expanded the lore of them pretty good.
This is the best one.
This was the best one since the first one, without a doubt.
By far.
And even the use of
it might even be better than the first one.
The sinkhole with the mud and how that was going to come back, and they just
it was really a perfect length.
Really,
too.
really good.
Really they didn't. There was no fat on this movie at all.
Right.
If that makes sense. Almost every movie really has I don't think.
And how triumphant was when she shows up at the end with the head.
Yeah,
and then they celebrate. They celebrate
like the monster.
They do this. Yeah, they didn't. None of them even believe.
And also,
her.
there's the idea that I think they almost pick I think a real almost mythical creature from that culture, and then they kind of have the predator almost fits in to that mold slightly, at least even roughly. Yeah. So when she's first because she's the first one to kind of pick up that
and they don't believe her,
and they don't believe her.
Which is
and she even says that she thinks it's a monster or something this.
It's bigger than a bear. It's not the same kind of thing. Yeah. And they, and obviously those guys that don't want her to hunt anywhere.
And not to mention when she's covered in the green blood of it, and when she comes back at the end.
And then they celebrate her the same way they celebrated the brother within that ritual. That now she is a hunter.
Yeah.
And one last thing, and let's move on because we've got too much to do. From a storytelling standpoint, the one point when all the women were headed in one direction to go do their responsibilities in the village, and she just got her ass kicked. She probably got concussed 5 times in this movie. Yeah. And she gets up and leaves the tent, and she goes the other way.
And the dog survives.
And they're all the women are all looking at her with disdain because she's breaking their culture too. So it wasn't just the guys that were mad; it was the mother and everybody in the tribe.
Her, though, too.
The brother was the only one that kind of loved her so much that he would, and he does what he's got to do to protect her, but he's trying to help her too.
I love the one joke. I love.
But when she's
the brother-sister relationship's really good because the brother sacrifices himself
visually,
for
when
her,
she's walking past the other women, they could have easily just had her get up and sneak out and go out the back way. No, she walks right past those women as if to say, "I'm gonna chart my own path." Yeah. And I thought that was I like great storytelling.
One of my favorite lines was when the brother, I think they're both tied up, and he's like, "This is the creature you chose to do your hunt against," and then they both laugh.
Yeah, which is definitely something you'd say to your.
I think that shows the relationship. That brother's
great. Walk away from the mic. I don't mind you throwing out your garbage in the middle of the podcast.
Though, the brother's choreography.
Yeah, that fight scene
scenes were
it's
nuts.
really good.
When he rocks up in a scene, you knew he was going to
he
do
does
badass
he does the jump. You know, like the what I don't know, like it's the 300.
Know,
It's like
he
the
does an
300
Assassin's
jump.
Creed,
Yeah,
like
it's like
an assassination
he's
from the
in
tree.
slow motion coming at like holy crap.
Yeah.
You know. Very good stuff. All right.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched it, check it out.
Yeah, very good. Great cinematography.
Even though we kind of ruined the ending for you, because you know what's going to happen at the end.
Yeah.
But watch it because it's a very good bit of film.
It's been out for 2 months. So.
Good job, Hulu.
I mean, it's wild that, like, why didn't you put this one in the theaters, idiots? It's like, you've been trying so hard for the last 22 decades, and the first one that you don't put in the damn theater is the good one. Like, what are you doing?
Because people in Hollywood are stupid and they're lazy.
Yeah, it's true. All right.
I don't know, but that was good. So check it out.
They should definitely do more of that, and I'm honestly...
Prey 2!
You could honestly do a whole series of just randomly picking a time period and putting a Predator there.
I think you're going to see that now. I think you're going to see that now.
I'm totally fine with that. It's very gimmicky, but I don't care. That works. If you're going to do, like, 2 Alien vs. Predator movies,
I know it's not a popular movie, but the movie that I really do like is I do like Cowboys vs. Aliens.
I don't mind
Cowboys. I love that movie an awful lot.
I think it's probably pretty generic if I was to watch it again.
But Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford are great in that movie. Olivia Wilde's in that movie. She's great. And the way they band together and
Harrison Ford's joining the MCU, it looks like.
What was it?
Harrison Ford is joining the MCU.
Yeah, well, that was going to be next week. Yes, he's taking over General Ross's character.
Yeah.
Whatever the stupid
Red Hulk.
He's not Red Hulk.
I think he will be Red Hulk.
Oh, is he Red Hulk?
I think he's going to be
Harrison Ford's 400 years old.
Well, he's not fucking. They don't put on a big fucking red suit.
They don't.
He's
not even doing the motion capture.
No, he's just doing the voice. He's just doing
just take my head.
They're just taking his face.
Just take my face and put it.
Because he's apparently going to be in. If this is true, he's going to be in both Captain America: New World Order and Thunderbolts
and Indiana Jones 5.
And yes, I guess that's not related, but yes, that's not related.
Or is it?
All right. Anyway, let's go to Lord of the Rings.
Okay,
now.
Lord of the Rings. It's not Lord of the Rings. It's Rings of Power.
Well, it's Lord of the Rings. The Rings of Power.
Rings
which is stupid.
Let's put rings in the title more often.
Make the title longer.
Okay, the only criticism of the finale.
I have a dialogue.
I only have
what do you
one.
Mean the only criticism.
I only have one. I had no problems with the finale because again, I'm an easygoing dude. Was just say they're gonna be rings. Stop saying it's got to be something smaller.
Smaller.
We get it. It's roundish. And it's a band.
They do a lot of that.
It's like, yes, it's going to be a ring.
Every other scene, man. What are you
the show's called The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. You got rings in the title twice. Yes, we get it.
All right.
Stop soloing me. And like... So that's why he has a gun.
Yeah, that's what a lot of this.
That was my only criticism of the whole episode. I loved it.
On this show as a whole.
This show was terrible and got great. That's the best way to.
I wouldn't say great.
All right, I'm very happy with the end.
I like this last episode quite a bit. I think it's probably one of the better episodes, if that makes sense. Although again, like there's not a single episode that I don't watch this and be like, oh my god, like get some better writers. Like there isn't a single episode.
Yeah,
that,
like, on the journey, you know, could you find a writer along the way?
Very quickly, almost literally, there's literally nearly nothing to criticize, both in terms of like cinematography.
Oh, not
there's
at all.
Very little.
Yeah,
like the one scene I can think of like early on. When,
they spent their money good.
Dude, go look at I was watching
CGI's good.
There's this one channel
really
that reacts to like animators or like CGI artists react to like stuff, and they were reacting to basically like the first scene where it's kind of like the original scene where like Frodo and Gandalf are together, and like they really showcase like the size difference between the two, because obviously like they're making Frodo like smaller than he actually is, and they're making Gandalf like taller than he is, at least in the framing of the camera shot. They do that with Nori, is that the character's name?
Yeah.
With Nori, and then the guy who we think is also spoilers for this last episode, by the way, for the stranger, I think is what they call him in the credits. But he's a wizard, it seems like, and he looks like he's probably going to be Gandalf.
He does the nose thing.
He's like. Well, even the way, once he starts talking, I'm like, that's Gandalf.
Yeah.
Once he starts talking at the end, it's the exact way, like, it's that soft yet powerful voice. It's that exact way. And even the way it's like, Eleanor Brandyfoot. It's like the way he says that. It's like Frodo back. Like that's like literally the exact same thing.
And then he says something about the nose or something.
It's like always follow your nose.
Yeah, he doesn't actually touch his nose.
It's literally
because they might as well have done that if
which
they
is
did
literally
that.
a line. I think it's literally a Gandalf line from one of the original.
But I'm going to say it. I was half kidding, but I said it as soon as we saw the meteor guy and we saw that he had a beard. I said it's Gandalf.
Yeah.
I
he was
said
doing
it.
magic stuff. I'm like, he's a wizard.
Once
right?
he said, but a lot of people were like, Well, he's not going to be that wizard. He'll just be a different wizard.
Which,
and I was
fair,
like,
this
why?
This is a continuity change. Because Gandalf isn't supposed to be this early on, I don't think.
Gandalf, we don't know how old Gandalf is.
He's the most famous character in the trilogy, though. So, bring him in.
Friggin' Gandalf.
I don't care. I don't care about...
Oh, no.
I don't care about the continuity that much to
J.R.R. Tolkien's going to be upset.
I don't care.
He's dead. No one cares. He's not watching the movies.
He was in 1800 when he wrote the book.
I don't think it's that old. No, I think you're thinking of I think you're the woman who wrote Frankenstein.
Every time.
I think that's who you're thinking of, Mary Shelley. I think you're thinking of Mary Shelley.
Christopher Columbus was fucking reading Lord of the Rings on his fucking voyage.
Well, there was a long boat ride. It was. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
All right.
Let's not get into Columbus.
No,
well, I mean, there's a bunch of spoilers in this. But most of them you kind of saw that they were coming.
At least.
You kind of they did a nice
answers in this. At least
they did a great misdirect with the trio of weird looking people.
I mean, I think it was. I didn't like that actually in hindsight because
they thought though that this was a reincarnation of.
Yeah, but also
Sauron.
I thought that what's the name of Sauron like for fucking 4 episodes. I thought what's the name of Sauron anyway. I think most people that kind of already had a sneaking suspicion that
But he said he killed
Sauron.
But he said he killed Sauron.
Who?
That guy.
Who did Halbrand?
The guy that was. Oh no, the other guy.
The guy who ends up being. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we already said spoilers, right?
Yes.
Obviously, Halbrand, the guy who we thought was the king of the Southlands, actually ends up being Sauron. I thought that for the last 4 episodes.
I didn't think that at all.
There's a weird thing.
I thought that was well done because I did not expect that.
But there's been a lot of people that have thought that he's been Sauron for there's people that thought he was Sauron since the Raft.
Okay.
There's been certain people that have been really clued on for a while. But
I think if you've read the books and you know the lore, it would be easier to catch some of those things.
Watched it. There's apparently a scene when they're on the island, the human island,
right,
where he's around the forges, where you see him kind of have a really interesting look at the forge almost.
Right.
It seems like it's foretelling.
So that's why he wanted to be an apprentice.
One of the only things though that all the Tolkien people know in their mind, because again, I'm not a Tolkien guy or anything, or an old Lord of the Rings lore stuff. But there is well-known stuff from this period in the lore. And one of the things that is known is Celebrimbor, that's the blacksmith guy.
Right.
And that Sauron gifted the rings and then with Celebrimbor built some of those rings. So there was a talk of once we figured out that he was going to the forges or whatever, it was or he was going to the elf place, it was okay, this might be the guy. Right.
Well, I mean, that was a good misdirect for most of us.
Some people are a bit because Sauron isn't really, because they kind of tried to make him complex, and there's a weird talk that next season they said he's gonna be Walter White.
He's selling meth.
Sauron is I don't think I've never when I was watching the original Lord of the Rings.
He's selling meth out of a trailer?
No, but I mean in terms of his he's bad but he's complex, if that makes sense.
Well,
you know
I don't
what I mean?
mind that. I don't want stereotype bad guys.
I get that, but that's not really what.
Why does he want?
And I'm fine with, and I am
Mordor?
fine with that, but also when I was watching the original 3 Lord of the Rings movies, I'm yeah, the big eye guy, he's a really complex villain with
how
really
does he
good,
get to being just an eye?
Well, I get it, and I'm sure they're gonna fill that in. But it to be fair, it is not very Tolkien.
It's not that important.
To be fair, it is the Tolkien in term Tolkien. It is kind of black and white. A lot of Tolkien.
Well, most fantasy is though.
And I wouldn't say so because I consider
Darth Vader's bad.
No, but that's only
he's black. Wearing black,
but I think that's
and
only
Luke Skywalker's good because he's wearing white.
No, but I mean, at least for Star Wars though, you don't have to look so far to find more if you're a 6-year-old, you can watch Star Wars and you can see that that it's very black and white, but there's enough in Star Wars.
But that comes later.
When
that
you're
comes
older.
after the 70s.
Lord of the Rings doesn't have that to me.
Well, because Lord of the Rings is older and it was written in a time when there weren't complexity with bad guys for the most part. But now we're in a generation we're writing new content.
I think he's a good Sauron, and I think they do particularly because Sauron's power is manipulation, right?
Sure. I didn't know that.
So that's what the whole weird Galadriel vision thing is.
Did you say me or did I say you?
So the manipulation head mess with thing, really good. Also for the fact that I do even though I think it was somewhat obvious to certain people that he was Sauron, or like that a lot of people were thinking that he was Sauron. I think like the way he messes with Galadriel this entire season and the way he's kind of was this character the entire time, I think that works really well for Sauron. That he was there the whole time,
well,
and
that's why
she wanted to kill him and look for him because he like murdered her brother, and she like saved his life, and like he saved her. And there's all this complexity now.
Well, and they definitely did a good job, even if you kind of knew it. For the people that out there, good job. But the ones who didn't, I think like it wasn't a surprise for most of us. And in general, it's a really good episode.
The what's it called stuff. I think the wizard stuff in this episode's the best.
Yeah,
I think
when he gets the staff for the first time, it's not his staff, but he gets that staff and he kind of protects everybody.
And he because they tell him he's Sauron because they think he's Sauron for whatever reason.
They actually think
and it's
he
all,
was Sauron.
which I guess that was my dislike. I was like, that it felt like that they only confused him for Sauron so that they could make the reveal that the other guy's Sauron be more impactful, like that they already thought that you had figured it out by this point, so we wanted to trick you like artificially,
which is good storytelling.
No, I don't think that at all.
Well, I think it is because
I think that they did a bad job. So like, all right, we're just gonna again just to be like, all right, he's Sauron. It's not, you were wrong, and then like, well, wait, you weren't. Like, you know what I mean?
If you look at the way the episode plays out, if they would have had to time the entire episode to make it work for that, and I think to be fair, I think I'm not going to nitpick on that.
To be fair, I think the first scene where they tell him that he's Sauron, or they think he's Sauron, I think that should have been the last scene last week.
Sure.
I think they should have ended the episode on that, and then you would have gone into this one, and it would have made a lot more sense, and it wouldn't have felt like that you were trying to like throw a weird. Like, because it felt like they were throwing an obvious misdirect.
Okay, I have one other thing that I remember that bothered me about this episode.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
And it was the freaking...
Besides dialogue, because dialogue always
the
bothers
foot
me in this
people.
show.
What are they called? The happy feet people.
The Harfoots.
The Harfoots.
I think.
Then they're just hobbits.
Yes.
So can we just stop calling them that?
No, but
that's not the problem.
But they walk.
At
they
some
don't stay in one place.
Can they just
walk
find
dead.
the Sire and the Shire and just let's just stay here and build roundhouses.
Because obviously
that's not what I'm mad about.
Obviously this motherfucker is Gandalf. So obviously the last scene in this fucking show is gonna be him like discovering the Shire.
You're
and like, oh, bye, Bilbo. Like, it's like,
you should live here,
and that's why, like,
and call yourself hobbits from now on.
Or like, I'm pretty sure that Nori's going to discover the Shire, like, right? It's pretty obvious,
so. And that's when they all come to her, and then
at
that's
the end
her
of her
legacy.
journey, she settles down there with her, like everyone else, and she finds them
and
a
we're
home
call
where they can be
hobbits.
safe and like not.
So, and at some point it'll be something like,
and also Gandalf kind of protects them too.
It'll be something stupid why they stop calling themselves Happy Feet.
I was very happy when they were like, always follow your nose, and I was like, yeah, it's Gandalf.
It is Gandalf, and I looked at you and I told you, I told you.
I'm happy to have Gandalf. I'm very happy to have Gandalf.
And if he's embracing Ian McKellen,
even like I'm good. Like I liked the I'm good. It was a little like.
I'm good.
But they told him he was bad and that he had to be bad, and you're Sauron, and you're going to wake up and you're going to be.
Let me tell you why I was mad. Let me tell you what made me mad.
What?
And this is not a big thing.
Yeah.
But the goodbye scene when Nora Branderfoot, whatever the hell her name is,
that seems long.
It is like, how many people are you going to say goodbye to everybody in this freaking tribe?
That is an emotional scene, though.
It's incredibly That's
well
like
done.
A
really good. Those characters,
even when the
those
father,
all characters, which I think maybe in the first half of the season, I really wasn't liking the storyline at all.
Yes.
But I think I actually eventually became attached to a lot, like to her family and to like Sadik,
the leader that dies.
I like that guy a lot.
The death scene is incredible. That's really good. But they really
even
did
they're
a job.
like even the way they
no, but let me finish.
them running around and like messing with the big ones and like I think that even like the little bit of like was very Hobbit-esque of like when you see Frodo doing it or Bilbo hobbits. Especially like like when he's with the dwarves.
No,
and
but
stuff.
what I did like, even though it took forever, was like the dad finally turns into be like supportive and like when
and the mother finally embraces
they
her.
Just they all kind of get the bag ready for her.
Yeah, that's great.
And they're like, and then it's kind of very parentry. Like we put an extra blanket in there, and
she was really trying to get her mother more than anything to like kind of
but the
recognize her too.
The father kind of like, and they kind of surprise her and like to go, and then they have the sequence with
he's like I'll be careful. It's like no, you'll be bold.
Yeah,
that's a good line actually. Like
it's emotional.
I'm very critical of the dialogue in the show a lot, but that's good dialogue. Like
No, like, and you're gonna do something that no one's ever done before, like find the Shire.
Yeah.
So we don't have to wander around for the rest.
On this path
Every year we go off and wander and get eaten by whatever orcs or whatever they get eaten by. Whatever they get eaten by.
Just eat them. Rip his leg off.
But and then even like and it was again, but then she has to say goodbye to the best friend. It's like I just called her like Sam. I forgot her name, so she's just like Sam. She's just like goodbye, Mr.
Original Sam.
Goodbye, Mr. Brandyfoot. I'll miss you. Like they just should have just had that,
Oh my god, the CG.
But even
the CG in the fight in the wizard CGI is so good. Like when he like extinguishes the fire and it just like blows out and then it all sucks out. Yeah. But then when he literally like he does like the staff thing, you get the blue glow, and then it almost does like like the ghosts in like the third movie. I think that's basically what it looked like, right? Or did it look like the
undead?
No, it looked like the undead. Like remember when you're in the ring? Yeah. When you're like when you have the ring, and then when you put it on, you look at the really ghostly looking guys, right? That are like were hunting Frodo. Like it looked like them almost. I think, or it looked like them, or it looked like the ghost guys that like Aragorn goes and gets. It was one of the two.
Well, they're not. Those aren't gonna be the same people.
But either way, it was related to whatever weird spirit magic was that. And then also,
they kind of
they turned into like moths too, which isn't like moths. Isn't there like a moth scene with like Gandalf too, if I remember correctly, like in the original?
Probably.
So I think like she literally turns them into like into moths, and they all they literally disintegrate into bugs and like fly away, which was like it's really cool.
And then the eagles eat them.
Yeah, that's They also do like in terms of like the visual sense of like having the they do. Remember like the first Lord of the Rings where like Saruman fights Gandalf, and like he's kind of like just like throwing him around with the staff. They do a bit of that in the fight scene as well, where it looks very similar.
I give them a lot of credit. I feel like they did do their research
of like how the fights looked in,
and
like
not just they did the research on the book level, but they also did the research on the Peter Jackson films, all of the films, including the Hobbit movies. And kind of tried to bring some similarities
in. It's a mix of everything. Yeah.
I mean, even something as simple as the music is very similar.
Yes.
I feel like it's not quite the same, but it's its own theme. But
it has that. Like almost like astral, like a bit further back.
Like they definitely do a lot with the music.
More ancient.
Yeah, like it's just very similar in terms of the composition.
It's kind of like the same thing they do with House of the Dragon, where it's a little bit more dramatic because it's farther back.
And of course, we do get the rings finally.
Yeah, at the end of the episode. Yeah.
And
I was a couple of the other cooler shots is like because obviously like what's Sauron's trying to like manipulate Galadriel. And you get the really cool scene of her where he's like in her brain. He takes her back to like her original home, and he brings her brother and has like the brother that's lied to her basically. Right. He puts her on the raft where he like saved her life, and they. Right. And he's like, hey, you didn't. I told you I did evil, and he's kind of right. He's like, he never really full on lied. He never told him who he was, but
we did have the underwater trope scene too, though, where she's underwater.
Well, he saved her there, so like that was the thing where he blipped her there. It's like, look, I saved you. I'm not gonna save you now. But even, like, there was the one scene where, because obviously he's, like, trying to get her to be, like, his queen or something. Right. And then you get, like, the really, really cool shot where they're on the raft, and it, like, starts to, like, shift and turn upside down. Right. And it focuses on the water, and it's, like him in his, like, full armor, like, in the reflection, and then her standing next to him. Yep. So that was, yeah. But either way, like.
Good stuff. I'm
looking forward to the next season. There's a lot to like. They definitely found their footing more so towards the end of the season.
Their brandy footing.
Yeah. But either way, like, the foundations of the show, like, there's great source material, like, obviously, like, incredible amounts of money. The visual effects, like, there's very little anything
There's nothing to criticize on the visual effects.
Even cinematography is very little,
Cinematography is very well done.
It's mostly just dialogue.
It's really
and some of the storytelling is a bit clunky.
Obviously,
and I think it becomes
people
a bit
compare it a lot.
At times.
People really compare it a lot to Game of Thrones.
I think it's the nature of it. They decided they
not the new show, not the new show, but the way Game of Thrones was perceived when it first came out.
Yes, I was saying that. Yeah.
And there are a lot of simlimilarities in terms of.
Well, that's why they bought it. Amazon wanted a Game of Thrones, so they bought
Lord
of the Rings. Like, that's literally what the situation is. They bought it to be compared to Game of Thrones.
And I think but in terms of even some of the challenges for Game of Thrones, if you go back and like, most people will tell you if you watch Game of Thrones, the first few episodes are tough to watch. You gotta stick with it. But
even then,
and I think that would be kind of my recommendation for anybody watching this show is, I remember I was making jokes about taking naps, power naps, like in the middle of Game of, my power rings of power naps.
I guess I see what you're saying.
It was a little. Some of the first episodes
you mean in
are
terms
just
of getting attached to the lore. Into the world,
yes.
Right? I can agree with you on that. That maybe the first couple episodes of both takes a bit to to hook you in.
It was the third episode before I really started to enjoy it.
But I will say for for first season of say the original Game of Thrones compared to the first season of this, like in those first early episodes, they're still being very, very, very well made, where there is issues in terms of the actual making of some of these earlier episodes in this. But I do see where you're coming from with that.
Well, it's
not
my thing. It's just the comparison.
Yeah.
And you can't really compare things. You can't say, well, this is like this, because they're all going to be their own animal. Mm-hmm. And it definitely, what I think they did is they definitely found a way to make some. To not get the missteps of other things that have tried to do things like this. Like, they found a way to not be the Star Wars prequels to some extent. They're building their own, but it's a little bit more time. I mean, I think when they sat down in the showrunners, and I don't mean the actors or the film cinematographers or anything, the people that sat down in a room and had the dry erase board that I always joke about, they really, what are we going to be? And I think the planning, I give them a lot of credit because I think the early on planning is paying off now.
Yeah. I would say there's a couple creepy shots.
Like, I wouldn't say that with the people that are developing Halo. Like, even though Halo visually is good, they decide,
I'll say this.
We're going to not follow the Bible of Halo. Yeah. We're going to be like a parallel universe Halo, which is fine, but is it Halo?
Where this leaves off, it leaves me more confident for the second season.
Oh, without a doubt.
And I will say, in the first 4 episodes, there was, I would say, very few characters I would say, I really liked or was, fully attached to in the show. But by the end of this, by this episode, there's, okay, I have my characters I like. I know which characters I want to see succeed and, live on. And,
right.
I like Galadriel's. I really have gotten attached to Galadriel's younger character now because I have, that's obviously one of the characters from the original one that grounds you in. If that is Gandalf, I'm going to be very happy.
He's a nice recasting.
I like Nori. I think Nori's a good companion if that's Gandalf.
Sure.
I think.
All right. And obviously we already talked about the dwarfs and the
dwarfs weren't even in this episode.
No, but I mean, just in general,
they're saving the battle rod for next season.
I don't know. I don't look at anybody in the show and I can't stand them now.
No, there's at least enough going on with each character.
We're not going to see the Harfoots again, or whatever they're called.
Not the big.
We're not going to really see many of them. We're going to
see
have
the
one character. And
Nori's our new Hobbit character.
We're only going to see the one. So
that's kind of what it is. There's always one.
They'll find some way why she's called a Hobbit.
Main Hobbit character that gets messed up in the story and
So all right, so we're, believe it or not, we're 56 minutes in, and we had 2 more things we wanted to do, so we're not doing both. You've got a 50-50 chance here.
We'll do Andor because that's the end of
Andor
arc.
Wrapped up. We have another episode of
next week is the last. I guess we can just talk. To be fair, this week for House of the Dragon, it was only the Greens.
I'll give you 30 seconds on this.
I will say this, yeah. So basically, we in the last episode, episode 8, the lines got drew with who was on which side, if that made sense.
Yeah.
We have the Blacks, which is Rhaenyra's side, and then we have the Greens, which is Alicent and her firstborn son to be king.
Right.
This episode is kind of the finale for the Greens. The Greens are not in the next episode.
Right.
And Rhaenyra wasn't in this one. Next episode
and
is
if
the
you
finale
haven't
for
watched
the
episode, yes, the only thing I'm going to say is that those lines are already screwed up in the Greens. Yeah. Those lines are already screwed up. Mm-hmm. Those lines,
again,
and that's a great.
Incredible episode.
Not a great episode, not the best episode.
No, I was going to say a little bit less going on.
But when it got good, it's holy crap,
and the
it was
performances
good.
are still doing their thing. The end's great.
Bye, Patty.
But either way, next week we'll talk about that episode too.
Yeah, let's get. So we're done on that.
There's almost a finale for each. There's a finale for each team, if that makes sense.
Well, we'll get to the other team, and we'll wrap up both those episodes in one thing next week.
We'll do Andor though, because this is the
third episode
of this arc here.
Andor's done with this third arc. We're not done with
the
Andor
second arc
yet.
of the show.
Second arc of the show. Excuse me, the 3-episode arc of the
heist
theft,
arc, if you want to call it
the
that.
heist arc. And overall, what were your impressions on everything now that we've gone through the heist?
My thing I can initially say about the heist is I like that it wasn't just this random over the top really, really well executed. It wasn't super complex. It was kind of just listen, all the guys are going to be down there, and we're gonna. I like that it was it wasn't noble. It was like really, it was kind of like some dirty work. It was like, look, we're gonna literally take all these people hostage. We're gonna literally force them to load up this like this ship with like the bounty. Right. It's like, and they literally create a hostage situation. So it's like the rebels, they are doing it against the Empire, but they are doing a situation that isn't necessarily like, it's not like they're nobly taking down stormtroopers. You know what I mean? Like they're using these people, they're robbing, they're like, there's an episode of Clone Wars where like these bounty hunters like take a bunch of like the senators hostage, and like it felt like that, where it's like, oh yeah, these are like our, where they're not like these are our heroes, so called, they're the rebels, but they're not doing like a noble act.
Well, that's kind of like going back to Rogue One, like Andor talks about that quite often. About
it's
like,
really, it's a dirty, it's like a little bit
like you don't know the things that I have done to get to this point, and like that's such a like that alludes, that line alludes to the whole backstory of the show. He's not this like perfect Luke Skywalker that shows up and just is just like, I can take the high road. This guy had a fight on the low road. It's so that when Luke Skywalker shows up, there is a high road to take. So
again, the last two episodes, even before the heist started, the tension's been great, and that continues on to this one. Some of the weird technology and like little gadgets and stuff they use is kind of fun, like the EMPs. And once you get to, I would say, like, where do you want to?
All I want to say is that I thought that it was that
they're just really good. I will say, like
the misdirection of a lot of the characters was good. You know, there's a lot of good things about the way they've introduced all these characters, and even if they're characters we won't see again for various reasons, some of them die, but also just some of the nature of the people in the Empire.
Yeah.
Like that the governor and his wife and his kid, and they're all
they do a lot of scenes with them.
Like there's a lot of good stuff, like which tells me like there's more to that story with that family. I don't know if we're gonna see them again.
I think it was more of this I don't think we're gonna see them again. I think it's more of that we're getting misconstrued because Star Wars usually doesn't do this. They're showing everyone in their full of who they are. Like this is, yes, he's an Imperial, but he also has kids and a wife, and like at the end he dies. Like he has a heart attack and collapses. Like so, like he's an Imperial, and like even like the one officer who's on the team that's like obviously their man on the inside, he says like, you traitor or whatever. He's like you'll hang for this or whatever, you'll be died for this or whatever. And he's like I deserve far worse than for serving you for the last like whatever many so it's a really good line, like where how he views himself for like the type of oppression that he's seemingly has, and even the way they refer to like the way that the one kind of like communications officer, the way he like talks about the natives of the planet, right? Like when there's like, there could be 100, and he's talking about how they smell and like these xenophobic, like, you know what I mean? Like it's very familiar.
Well, what I thought was good was that the way they established character types, and then also a lot of the the big reveals of who was good and who was bad and who lives and who dies. Yeah. Very well done.
A lot of reality and just like even like, for instance, like two of the guys don't even make it out of the base. The two former Imperial guys actually don't even make it out of the base. They get killed like even before they even manage to get the ship in the air.
Well, it's interesting because obviously, like, I don't want to go through every single character. Yeah. And the one character obviously turns out that he was, he betrayed them anyway. He was planning to just do his thing, take the money,
or take as much money as he can.
And that's obviously a problem, that why they build the resistance into these cells, and that's obviously something that.
Well, there's even a level of like not everyone around you is like the most trustworthy, and like this is still a.
Well, and the ironic part is they didn't want to trust Andor. They don't want to trust Andor, and and it's
then one of the guys that was like so-called like in the team was kind of thinking about betraying him the whole time, maybe,
right?
Or at least had it in the back of his mind that maybe
I just kind of like Andor's reaction to that scene. Yeah, what he does. I mean, without saying
just
it,
shoots.
Like if he does, he just kills the dude.
Well,
he's like,
we're doing spoilers.
Yeah, like he just kills him, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing that. But at the same time, now he just wants to flee. He's like, I just want to get the hell out of here. Yeah. He goes in there. I just want what was promised me. Give this back to your friend. I'm buying your ship, and I'm getting the hell out of here.
But also, he cares enough that he's like, dang, like, no, you're not going to do this to these people either, though. Like, he doesn't kill him for himself.
Right.
Well, he kind of does. Like, it's like, he does it because he kills him because because it's the right thing to do. Again, at least in his mind.
No, he kills him because, in my mind, he does kill him because he's like, this dude's gonna kill her.
Yeah, and take the money.
And I made an agreement.
And Nemec and all these other guys
I made
died
an agreement
for,
that I would help with this mission and I would get the hell out of here. And if I let him go and kill her, then I betrayed.
Let's talk about the.
So he does. In my mind, he still has he does what he has to do because he made an agreement with what's his name and
Skarsgård's character.
Skarsgård's character. So, but now he just wants to go because his deal wasn't to sign up as part of the rebellion.
Right, once they get
now,
the ship
obviously, we have to see what happens. We have to see what happens next.
All right, let's talk about the. Well, first off, this is the one scene we see in the trailer where like all the lights in the sky, and what a beautiful,
which was incredibly well done.
Really, really, really good visual
Quality
effects.
CGI there.
It's kind of the thing. That's the type of stuff that they should be exploring with Star Wars. It's a very, very big galaxy, and they can do type of stuff like that with it. Like they can be creative and create these like mesmerizing things that become a part of that planet's culture. Like it's great. And then obviously like using that as like the escape and to create like a pretty original like chase scene. Of like, because obviously Nemec gets like very like gravely wounded on the when they're like he gets hit by like a box like on the he gets crushed almost. But
which is a very practical thing that would happen because they're in an
atmosphere. And then even after he gets like incredibly hurt and crushed, he still is the guy that has to kind of direct them through the astrals, whatever the storm's called, like all the
even though he knows he's pretty much probably gonna die.
Yeah, and even then, like he's telling like Andor to climb like closer to where the like the actual things that can destroy the ship are, and then he's like go down. He's like, and you see like this guy who's literally dying. He's been crushed, and he's like, I don't even think he can move his legs at this point.
No, because he's paralyzed.
And he's literally just screaming, and he's telling him to go up and down and up, and this is really just tense scene. The music is like no music we've ever heard in Star Wars before.
Right.
All the TIE fighters, which also the TIE fighters have a really cool launching scene as well.
Like, we kind of saw that a little bit in Rogue. We saw that a little bit in Rogue One about how they launch and stuff. So.
Which I love that. I like whenever we see anything like that in terms of like
like how it works,
the infrastructure.
We never
stuff.
saw
like
that stuff. We never saw that stuff in the original movies, like how they work and how a guy gets into the
Nemec
TIE fighter.
Nemec in this
like
very
any of that
limited
stuff,
screen time, these 3 episodes he's in, Nemec is a very, and obviously they take Nemec to a doctor and like. The one leader of the thing is trying to decide: do we finish the mission? Do we try to get him save his life? And Andor's like, "Where's the doctor?" Like,
and that again, it shows he felt he owed that guy because they wouldn't have made it if it wasn't for him anyway.
And obviously, they don't manage to save Nemec,
right?
Even though like Nemec, they succeed because of Nemec, which I do like.
And I think that's part again Andor's.
But
integrity.
Also this thing that And then obviously he doesn't even explain to her what happened with the other guy that he killed, and he kind of just runs off. But before he runs off, and I love this little touch, and this is gonna be, and I think this is like a really perfect thing. She gives him Nemec's like writing.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Like, and I'm like, oh my god,
his
like
manifesto.
This kid that like this really kid that I like that every Star Wars fan is like falling in love with this like super ideological like in universe kid. Like everyone liked his like the way he like espoused like what he believed in and like how like like kind of political like he sounded as well, like the way that he referred to it in like a much more adult like serious way than like we usually hear about things in Star Wars.
Right.
And it's gonna be so good that like that guy is like what like his teachings like and Cassian's gonna read them, and like that's gonna be like I think one of the things that helps it click will be this kid's views.
Well, it's going to be interesting
how he viewed the galaxy, and like
it's
what
interesting
he saw,
what happens at the beginning of the next episode if he really can leave on
I'm
that ship.
I'm curious where this is like how he decides like where do we go.
Part
next
of me feels like
here?
he's not able to even leave, like that ship doesn't work, or the other thing is the one character that we don't know what's going to be her status is the girl. Is the other
we don't know
girl
where she's going
because we saw her leave the base.
Yeah,
and
the two
walking.
girls are the only ones that survived.
Yeah,
Cinta, I think her name was.
So
and
she's
in like Imperial Guard.
And we see her walking away.
Yeah.
She took a uniform and she walked away.
Yeah, she's watching the sky with all the other.
Yeah, so we
now,
don't know like. How are they going to find her?
Yeah,
I wonder if Andor is going to run into her somehow. I'm wondering
I don't think we'll see these guys again, to be honest. I think we're done with them, and I think we're moving on to another arc now.
But I mean, why would we just see her walk away then?
I just think they just didn't want to kill everyone, and I think.
But how does he reconnect with Skarsgård?
No, but I think they wanted to show the scene from the ground again because of all the Imperials and all the normal people just watching together, and the person that was in between.
But if he just runs, then how is he going to get hooked back up in with everybody?
I assume they'll track him down.
I think there's going to be. I don't think this is the last of the girl. I think we're
maybe.
Well,
I guess I could be wrong. So
she's the only one that seems to be really truly into the cause.
Let's say Mothma's still in this a bit. Mothma's in this episode a bit, right?
No, I don't think we saw her in this.
No, she's in the car.
Oh, the only thing we see is when she's in the Senate. We got to see the Senate.
Oh,
again.
the Senate thing was cool. I liked that.
Nobody's some old CGI.
Nobody's paying attention to her.
Because
it's all for
happening.
show anyway.
Yeah, because something happens, in the middle of it.
And either way, it is all for show, even beyond something happening. They don't actually have
That's
any
how
power.
every teacher feels like when something happens in the real world and all the kids' cell phones go off, or a college professor in Knox 5
and
at
at
UB,
the end you have
everybody's just on their phone ignoring the professor.
Literally
I'm not watching your PowerPoint. I'll do it tonight when I study.
Skarsgård's only literally had a single scene in the last 2 episodes, and he stole the show. And literally the one scene he had, he hears about it, and he's like, "Oh, really? Let me go look in the back." And then he just goes and laughs. He's like,
All right, let's wrap it up because we want.
But I'm loving Andor. I really am. I'm just happy that we have some really focused Star Wars content. That is more than that's long. That we're you know what I mean. It's different.
Can I wrap it up with my bad dad joke?
No.
I'm going to do it anyway.
No.
So I just keep waiting to see when are the Ewoks going to show up.
The Ewoks, man.
Yeah, someone actually said I thought this show was going to be about Ewoks because it's Endor instead of Andor.
That's fucking stupid.
I didn't say it was a good joke. It's a dad joke. When are the Ewoks showing up?
I'm leaving.
If there's Ewoks that show up, don't leave.
I'm leaving.
Don't leave. Don't go. Don't go away angry. Just go. All right, well, thanks. Let's wrap this up, though. Seriously, we do appreciate everybody been supporting us. Pretty soon, out of a merge, we're going to be launching our merch. So we're hoping that even if you don't want to make a podcast or if you can't be part of Merge Media Creators Co-op, we could use your support by buying some of our merch.
Spend your money.
Well, the money, any money we're making, off the merch is going right back into my
pockets.
Right back into Christian's pockets and the facility.
Mainly
but seriously,
pockets,
we continue to develop, and we really appreciate all the people that are supporting all our other podcasts here. And got anything else done?
No, not at all.
All right. Thank you for listening and watching, and we'll be back next week.
Take care.